Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends. I'm not exactly sure when on Ascension Day you'll be watching this video clip. Greetings from brothers and sisters in Christ in Somerset West, South Africa, who are sharers with you in the social isolation and in the confinement caused by the global COVID-19 epidemic. I feel a little like the writer of the book of Revelation, writing out of the great persecutions of the early church. Neil Mayer and I have decided to make use of the cheap airfares by swapping pulpits for this Ascension Day service. In one of his books, Philip Yancey wonders what the world would have been like if Jesus had not been raised from the dead. Surely the disciples would not have forgotten him. They might not have had the courage to preach the good news, but they would surely have remembered his teaching. After 3 years of working and walking with Jesus across Palestine, he might not have been the Messiah, but still he was their friend. He had impressed them as the wisest teacher ever and had demonstrated powers that no man could explain. After a while, their emotional wounds would have healed, and they would probably have sought ways to memorialize him. Jesus would have lived on in the same way as Socrates or Confucius or any of the other great wise men of his era. Things surely would have been different. I kind of wonder what things would have been like if Jesus had not ascended. He would have been there to supervise the setting up of his church. He could have overseen the spread of the gospel. He could have continued to challenge the Pharisees, and everything would surely have turned out just right. None of the fumbling that went on after his resurrection. The time between the resurrection and the ascension was always going to be an interlude, a brief interlude. Sitting around the table, that last time before his arrest, Jesus made a peculiar announcement, and this is recorded by St. John. A little while, and you won't see me anymore, and then a little while, and you will see me. Frederick Buechner speculates that their mouths must have been dry with fear, and they must have been thinking a little less clearly than usual. And he adds, in the disciples' case, the thinking was not at all clear at the best of times. The sound of Jesus' voice was partly drowned out by the thumping of their hearts. It sounds to me much the same as when I hear something shocking. My ears kind of haze over, and it takes a bit of time to hear normally again. A little while, and you won't see me anymore. And then a little while, and you will see me. A strange little sentence about leaving and returning. Developmental psychologists tell us that a child learns to fear when its mother or father leaves the room. He or she who has been present is now absent, and there is no evidence to suggest that she or he will ever return again. But the child learns hope when the parent is experienced as a pattern to return every time he or she leaves. Fear upon leaving, hope upon returning. A little while and you will not see me anymore, and then a little while and you will see me. I have found this little while that we have been isolated or tucked up in our houses during the coronavirus epidemic excruciating. Not seeing the people that I know and love, not being able to do the things that I usually do, has been very hard for me. But the disciples do the human thing. They hone in on the leaving. Their hearts are filled with fear, and so we find them in Luke 24, staring up at the blank blue sky. Fear, fear, and more fear. And they might still have been standing there, had it not been for the encouraging words the angels spoke. Did they remember his words spoken around the table? A little while and you won't see me anymore. and then a little while and you will see me. It is those little whiles that are so frustrating because we hate to wait. Isn't waiting what lazy people do? We are the now generation. Instant meals, fast food, everything is instant, everything is fast. We want service and we want it now. And yet our God waits. Abraham was promised the land, but it did not come in his lifetime, or even his sons or his grandsons, or even his great-grandson's lifetime. 400 years after Joseph, the land was given to God's people. Our God waits, and he waits for the fullness of time, and he calls us to wait also. A little while, says Jesus, and you won't see me anymore, and then a little while and you will see me. The fear of his leaving must soon make way for the expectation of his return. Again, Frederick Buechner writes, once in a while things flicker up, out of our lives like a flame out of the ashes we thought were long since dead. And by flickering, we see things, or we think we do, that for a second or two make not all the difference in the world to us, but enough of a difference to stay in our memory like a dream. Once in a while, someone reminds us, someone who has seen him plain somehow and known him, because there are such people in the world, people whose lives flicker with life that they have seen, and whose words and lives make our scalps tingle, make us believe that there actually was a Jesus once, and in some sense there still is. A little while. A little while. And so here we are, my friends, deep in the midst of that second little while, working and waiting, holding out for his return. And in the meantime, he has entrusted the church, the world, indeed the universe, into these hands of mine and into those hands of yours. And what a royal mess we've sometimes made of it. Living 2 millennia after the disciples, writes Philip Yancey, I look back and marvel at how little difference the church has made in such a world. Why did Jesus leave us alone to fight the battles? How can it be good that he went away? And yes, we have made a mess of it. The author Annie Dillard once wrote, what a pity that so hard on the heels of Christ comes the Christians. Or what about the line from the movie Heavenly Creatures? It's like heaven, only better, the two girls muse. There aren't any Christians. The second little while is for us, and it is a gift from God, a space and an opportunity to follow, to be faithful, to renew the face of the earth. A little while is also a time of hope, and hope is a great and awesome thing, and it is not hard to hope sometimes. For the spirit of him is so at large in the air we breathe that almost anything we see can turn into the shadow of him if we're not careful, or if we are careful. Perhaps a piece of bread and a glass of wine. We go to church looking for Jesus in some uncertain way because we have seen him. We've seen enough of him to suspect that if there is anyone who can enlighten the dimness of us, he is the one who can, for he is the light of the world. Though I have spoken to you figuratively this time, Jesus says in Luke's Gospel, a time is coming when I will no longer use this kind of language, but will speak to you plainly about my Father. The time is coming when there will be no more confusion, no more misunderstanding, no more ignorance. Paul says we shall see him as he really is. We shall know just as we are known. Our little time is drawing to a close, and the pain of this world shall be as nothing next to the joy that awaits us, as the pain of labor is soon forgotten when the joy of a new life is experienced. So in the meantime, what shall we do? How shall we prepare for his coming? 1, we can tell others what he has done. 2, we can love others like never before. And 3, we can serve others, and by doing so, become instruments of his grace. That is the great commission we have been given, and the purpose of our little while. We are not perfect, but we shall persevere, and in all our insufficiency, we shall push forward. For Christ has not abandoned us. He still takes full responsibility for his church. You did not choose me, said Jesus, but I chose you, and he still bears the wounds of his church. We will tell others about what he has done. We will love others like never before. We will serve others and so become instruments of his grace. And we shall wait, for the air is pregnant with hope that he will come again. So that is my wish for all of you this Ascension Day, that you will remember his coming and that you will be filled with hope even in such a peculiar time. And best wishes from us here in the Deep South. Amen.